Okay, welcome back to Shooting It Straight. The reason I decided to do this particular video is because I continue to see a lot of other videos and people as well that seem to think that the 1911 requires some sort of special maintenance or treatment that is not required for other semi-auto handguns, during routine cleaning and maintenance and so forth, or that the 1911 requires some kind of special attention in that regard. I want to I want to let you know that this is just not true. And today I intend to show you how to I intend to show you a simple and easy way to maintain and properly clean your 1911. Now, this video is primarily geared toward the first-time 1911 owner, although hopefully you veteran owners might find some value in it as well. Now, I'd like to clearly state that although I've spent a lot of time with 1911s, I am not a 1911 expert, nor am I an instructor. I'm only giving you factual information, options, and suggestions. That's it. Okay? Now, what's our primary purpose here? Well, the main goal of cleaning any firearm is to simply remove the carbon and graphite fouling from within it, along with any other debris and oils and particulate matter and so forth. Now, this is accomplished the same way for every firearm, and the 1911 is no different than that. In this video, I'll demonstrate how I perform routine maintenance on my 1911, which is really nothing different than what I do with all of my handguns. Of course, you may do some things a bit different than me, and that's okay. You do you, I'll do me. But we already know that routine maintenance includes basic cleaning of the firearm after use while we're inspecting the parts and components for any damage or deformities, right? And this is why it's called gun maintenance. And again, the 1911 is no different here than any other firearm. Now, a big question here that is always posed is, well, how often should I clean it? Well, I will reiterate once again, as I have in a previous video, that almost all manufacturers recommend that you clean the firearm after every use or after every range session. Same thing. It's not something that is necessarily determined by round count alone. So, now what you don't want to do, and a lot of people do this, and I can understand it, but let me throw this out here to you. What you really don't want to do is to put this gun away after you get back from the range. Maybe you've only put 50 rounds or so through it, all right? But you decide, well, I'm just going to put it up and because it's not fouled enough to clean, and I'll clean it next time I go to the range and all that. A lot of gun owners are guilty of that, but it's a mistake. And here's why it's a mistake. That black soot-like fouling that you see in the barrel, the chamber, the muzzle, and everything, well, that's comprised mainly of carbon deposits from burnt powder residue. Now, carbon is hygroscopic. It absorbs moisture. Moisture, or acids, is what causes rust and corrosion on steel. All right? So allowing that gun to hold that carbon fouling in it allows it time to collect and hold moisture. It's the perfect recipe for rust and corrosion. Now, you don't necessarily need to take the gun apart and scrub it, but at least wipe it off with solvent, then wipe it dry. All right, that's part of being a responsible gun owner. All right, let's get started. And there's a few ways to go about disassembly, but I'm going to disassemble the gun exactly how the instructions come from Colt, you know, the original 1911 manufacturer. I do want to quickly point out that if you have wooden grip panels, you might want to remove them while cleaning, if that cleaning is going to be very close in this specific area, because solvent or oils can soak into that wood and then it could ruin them over time. So think about that. All right. We are clear, of course. All the mags are empty. All right, this recoil spring is 16 pounds of tension, so be very careful. You don't want that to slip and shoot, because then this recoil spring plug, and it's a plug, it's not a plunger, it's a plug. This plug will shoot off of there and become a bullet. All right. Now we can take our bushing here and we can rotate it, because there's a keyway in here. Okay, there's a keyway inside of the slide right here that retains that bushing. So we got to get it out of that keyway, and the way to do that is to go right through the coils, push it to the opposite side, and then we can just lift the bushing right out. Alright, and we're going to slide the slide back until this real small semicircular notch right here is lined up with the slide stop lever back here. Once we get that lined up, directly over that, we can push on the cross pin from the opposite side, push this out, and lift this up and pluck it out. All right, now here's where a lot of people like to grab the spring and pull it out this way. And on some models and some 1911s you can do that, but on others you cannot. On this one you can't do that. All right, it is fixed. The spring is firmly attached to the guide, and if you pull on that spring hard enough, you'll stretch those coils out. Then you'll ruin the calibration of your spring. So just push it forward and pull the frame right off. Just take the frame right off, and then remove your recoil spring as a unit with the guide as a unit this way. Pull it out this way instead of that way. Alright, so just pull it out this way. See, on this model, on TSOS, the spring is designed to stay affixed to your guide. You have to twist that spring off. Okay, it's not going to come off otherwise. Not all models and not all 1911s are like that. Sometimes, some of them, you can just grab the yoke right here, turn it upside down, and the spring will slide and fall right off. That's fine. Now we unlock the barrel from the cams in the frame here and just slide it forward. And there we have our barrel, our slide, our frame, recoil spring plug, bushing, slide stop lever, cross pin, recoil spring connected to the guide. And that's it. Okay, that's as far as you need to break it down. All right. I have laid out just a few basic cleaning supplies, which is all that you need to clean this stuff with. Okay, we have cheap gun bore solvent. Hoppy's number 9 actually is what that is. We have cleaning patches. We've got a cleaning rod with a bronze bristle bore brush attached to it. We also have the nylon bristle brush that came with the gun itself. These things aren't really bad. They can be used for emergencies or very, very light shooting. But it's not something you'd want to use all the time. It's just not enough to get some of that burnt off fouling that gets up inside that chamber, and after a while it will start burning to the walls. This is the only thing you can use to scrub it and get that stuff out. This won't do it. It's good for a short-term fix, but this is what you want to use most of the time. Alright, we got our microfiber wipe down cloth, got a few Q-tips, we got back here just plain simple gun oil, and we've got a silicone impregnated gun wipe. That's pretty much it. That's all you need. Simple and inexpensive and with no mess. You know, if you make a habit of cleaning your gun each time you get back from the range, regardless of how many rounds you put through it, instead of letting that fouling build up, you usually won't have to soak any parts or vigorously scrub anything, unless of course you put several hundreds of rounds through it in that one range session. Alright, now I'm going to note that my 1911 here is not fouled, it is clean. However, I will go through the motions very quickly at each step. Now I do it this way to keep the video shorter so we don't waste time. You don't need to watch me remove carbon fouling. You know how to do that. You just use the bore solvent and the patches and wipe it down. Maybe you might have to scrub something on occasion, but you just do that until that's clean, and you dry everything off. It's simple. Now our mission at this stage is to remove all visible graphite, carbon, oils, other fouling, debris, or particulate matter. And like I said, to do that, all we need is just simple, cheap bore solvent and some patches or a cloth, and perhaps that nylon cleaning brush. Then dry these parts or areas off and wipe off any remaining solvent afterwards with a clean cloth. That's it. That's all it needs. Now, usually the only area or part that would need scrubbing would be the breech face right here. You know, where the firing pin comes out. Usually you'll have to scrub that with your nylon brush, because you want to angle it and get that extractor as good as you can as well. Okay, and on occasion you're going to have to scrub the interior walls of this chamber here, because like I said, it gets compressed onto those walls when that case swells, and it burns onto the walls there, and you can't let that build up or you'll have feeding problems. So you got to clean it out with that. And if you do it every time like that, then it's probably not going to build up. All right. While we're at that, a special note here concerns the firing pin and extractor disassembly and cleaning. Now these two components do need to be kept clean, but I typically only remove the firing pin and the extractor and clean them about every 500 rounds or so. It just depends on how much I've shot and what brand of ammo I ran through it. You know, steel case ammo will foul out these parts much quicker. Your Wolf and tool ammo and things of that nature, they shoot dirty, so they foul very heavily very quickly because they are steel case ammo. Additionally, I don't do anything with the magazines except wipe them off. Okay? That's it. I rarely disassemble and clean them after any normal range session. Now, naturally, you'll want to disassemble and clean them eventually, or if you've dropped them in sand, mud, water, whatever. But when you do disassemble and clean a magazine, use caution here, okay? And the reason I bring this up is I have heard gurus in the gun community talk about magazines and say that it's fine to put a little oil or dry graphite in the magazine to help the follower glide smoothly. I strongly urge you to stay away from that practice. My advice is that you never put oil or powdered graphite in your magazine for any reason. Graphite is abrasive, and it will eventually damage the internals of the magazine. It has no business being on any firearm. Oil will get on these magazine feed lips eventually, which will cause stovepipe malfunctions. Just simply wipe down the components with a clean, dry cloth and reassemble. You can take the base, the floor plate off here, take the magazine out, take a rag, shove it up through the body there and pull it through a couple of times and clean it out that way. Then while you got your spring out, just wipe your spring off. That's all you need to do. No oil, no nothing, just wipe it off. Wipe the follower down, put the follower, the spring, and the floor plate back on. That's it. All right. That's how you properly maintain a magazine. Now, if your magazine doesn't run smooth enough to assure proper function of your gun, then get a different magazine. But now, all right, let's get to the cleaning of a few of the components real quick. All right. And you'll see this process repeated over and over. Take a patch, fold it over, put some bore solvent on it. You don't need to saturate anything. And just wipe off any fouling that you see anywhere around the ejection port, around the front here. You're going to have that up in here, all up in here, breech face, strip rail, all that stuff. Just wipe it down. All right. And just get that carbon fouling off of there. Take your cloth and wipe any of that bore solvent off of there. Okay. The bore solvent's not going to hurt anything, but if you let it dry, and it evaporates very quickly, if you let it dry, sometimes it'll leave a microfilm of residue, and I don't want that to happen, so I just wipe it off. Now you're going to have to clean these rails in here, these rail cuts. You're going to have to do that. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can do that with a Q-tip. You crush the edge of it, a little bit of bore solvent, and just clean out those rail cuts this way. keep doing it. Or some people like to take a patch, take the skinny side of their M16 cleaning brush, maybe wrap that around there, a little bit of bore solvent, and scrub it out that way. You can do that too, it doesn't really matter. But you need to get those rail cuts cleaned out. Get down in here, but get down in here on both sides of this strip rail here. Maybe add another patch and get up in here. Get all this around up in here. And again, wipe it all down. Now, if you need to scrub that breech face, and you probably will, because you want that cartridge to slide up against that breech face when it's being fed. But remember, anytime we're going to clean that breech face, especially when we're going to scrub it, we want to hold that breech face where it's facing down, so gravity can do its thing instead of up like that. It's easier to do it this way, but you're going to knock some material and fouling down into that firing pin chamber. So hold it upside down and scrub it out that way. And of course, don't forget to get that extractor. That's important. And wipe everything back down. Make sure your rail cuts are good. We're looking at everything, we're inspecting everything. Everything looks good, no warps, no dents, no dings, no damage, no deformities. Okay. Right now would be a good time to get our other parts here. Plug. Everything's good, no splits. Our bushing. This is going to get pretty foul, so you need to clean this out. You need to clean inside of it as well, because that's where your barrel goes. And here. And all that. There's no splits, no cracks. We're doing good. Of course, you wipe it dry naturally. Now we got our takedown lever and the cross pin. Cross pin is what you want to look at. You don't want to see any big dings or gouges in there. But wipe it down. Wipe everything down. You might even have to, or want to, scrub the interior right here where it goes inside of the frame, because that is susceptible to fouling. So keep a close eye on that. But everything looks good on that too. There's nothing you need to do with the recoil spring. You might want to wipe off the base of the yoke right here. And that's really about all you need to do with that. Maybe you might can wipe it off if you want to. No oil, no lube, no nothing on any spring. Springs do not need it. All right, now now we got our barrel. It's the same thing. Bore solvent, patch. Get these cam cuts right in here. Get them real good. Okay, that's important. You don't want debris in there to interfere with the proper contacts. Get that throat, that upper feed right up in here. Get that barrel length. You can get your slotted tip, and you can put it in here. You take that off. Put some bore solvent on there. Run it up and down through there a little bit. Let it break some of that up. And then, depending on how much you shot, you can use your nylon bristle brush, or you can use that one. All the way through, then all the way back out. All the way through, then all the way back out. And you only need to do that a few times. You don't gotta scrub the shit out of it, you know. And then just wipe it all down so that you can handle it. That way it's easier to handle that way too. Then of course you go through your process of putting your patches through your slots and cleaning out all that gunk with the patches. And just keep doing that until it's clean and dry. You want that board dry. You don't need any, this board does not need any lubricant, any oil, or anything like that. It just doesn't need it. And you're going to carry the thing like this all the time. If you put oil in this, all it's going to do is run out here. And then it's going to be in your holster or your pants or whatever. All right. Now, all we have is the frame. And, you know, again, that's easy. And it's as simple, and it's just the same thing. A patch, bore solvent. We're wiping everything down. Dust cover, or lower dust cover here. The rails. Back here where our disconnector is. We're wiping our ejector. Hammer face. Naturally the feed ramp. We're going to spend some time scrubbing on that. And down in here as far as you can get. Okay. Get all of that black fouling out of there. Soot. All that. Wipe it all down. Get it all good and dry. Now we did the rail cuts on the slide. Now we need to do the cuts right here on these frame rails. And again, you can do it one of two ways. You can take a patch and fold it over, and you can clean it out that way with a little bit of bore solvent. Same thing with that. Or you can take your Q-tip with a drop of bore solvent on there and do the same thing right there. Doesn't matter. The point is you need to get these rails clean. All right, that's the biggest points of contact in the entire pistol. All right. So we got all that. We wiped everything clean. All right. Now we're at the point. We've inspected everything, you know. There's no nicks in the crown. The link is still good. There's no splits or cracks anywhere. There's no nothing that stands out here that looks like it's deformed or damaged in any way. All right. Now we're at the point where most people feel the need to lubricate, or lube as they call it, which I hate that term, but whatever. But I'd like to now debunk yet another common misconception regarding the 1911 here. I constantly hear people claim that a 1911 needs more lube than other guns, and they need it because the 1911s have more metal-on-metal contact surfaces. Well, yeah, generally there will be more metal-on-metal contact. Actually, it's steel on steel. It's not metal, it's steel. But anyway, and yes, they do have more contact than most other guns. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter how much metal-on-metal contact there is in a firearm, since none of it can ever produce enough friction to wear down anything or to disrupt any reciprocation, easy for you to say, reciprocation of any components. So gun oil is not going to contribute to anything. Now that's Metallurgical Science 101. Modern guns made with high-grade hardened steel does not need oil or lubricants at all in order to function properly. The lubricity comes from the hardened surfaces of the steel components themselves, such as the slide rails and so forth, through the marrying process. Okay, the marrying of the two metal surface to surface parts. They eventually, gunsmiths call it marrying. All right, and that smooths out everything, and it smooths it out, and it'll stay that way. All right, so the 1911 is no exception to that. So this teaching of putting lube anywhere you have metal on metal contact or everywhere you see wear marks really has no merit when it concerns gun steel. We're talking about gun steel, all right? We're not talking about car engines. Listen carefully. All right, it doesn't concern gun steel since there will be no dimensional changes in any component anyway, whether it has oil or not. Now, however, I've always said that if applied correctly, there's nothing at all wrong with lubricating your pistol. And I'll give you a suggestion. And it's just a suggestion. You don't have to do anything I'm telling you. I'm just giving suggestions here. All right. And you may do it differently. You may do it differently. That's fine. You might want to give certain areas a wipe down, just a wipe down with your synthetic gun cloth, purely as a means of corrosion protection. Nothing wrong with wiping it down in here, maybe getting up in here. That's okay too. All right. You might want to run it along here. That's fine too. Okay. And of course, now I always do the barrel, and I know it's stainless steel, but stainless steel does corrode. It can rust. It's just more resistant. You can do it that way. That's how I do it. Now, a lot of guys like to put oil on the slide rails, or the rails of it, and that's cool. That's not a problem, but it needs to be done correctly. I suggest using a Q-tip and to spread a drop. Just take a Q-tip and flatten it out right there. Put a drop on this side and a drop on that side of it, and just run it twice in that rail cut. Turn it over, run it twice in that rail cut. That's all it needs, and it doesn't even need that, but that's all you need to put in there. Now, you've already got it here, so you don't need it in here. All right, so leave this alone. You've got all you need right there. Okay. I strongly advise against this common practice that I always see people do, is take their oil, put a couple of drops in that rail cut, a couple of drops in that rail cut, stand it on its end and let the oil run down. Look, that's definitely over lubrication, and that lubrication will migrate possibly into areas that could create issues, such as your magazine lips, the ammo in your magazine, your clothing, and so forth. Maybe your grips, maybe your wooden grip panels. All right. I see no need in oiling or lubing any other area or component of the pistol. Limited lubrication such as this avoids oils migrating to the magazine, the ammo, the holster, clothing, and it avoids getting all that nasty black sludge buildup of fouling that is mixed with all that oil or grease, which is even worse, all over the components when you start to clean it. a dry gun is much easier and faster to clean, since a large part of the fouling is blown free from the gun each time it is fired, because there is no oil to hold that fouling in your gun. And like I said, grease is even worse. The only legitimate use for oil on a gun is for corrosion protection, and all gun oils do that job just fine. I feel that if your 1911 actually requires more lubrication than what you just saw in order for it to run properly, then you might want to think about sending it back to the manufacturer's service department, because something is wrong with it. Alright. We're going to reassemble this, and then we'll perform the safety checks. And I'll probably edit this reassembly process just for the sake of time, because I have a hard time. I can't see that link very well and get it lined up where I need to. I have trouble with that sometimes because of my vision. So I'll probably edit this. But when we come back, we'll do safety checks. We'll check the thumb safety, the grip safety, the disconnect safety, and things of that nature. Okay? We have it reassembled now, and so we're going to do our post-assembly safety checks on there. I have a magazine with a dummy round so we can do some hammer falls. Alright, now let's check the safeties. Okay. Yep, works. Okay. Alright, the grip safety. Okay. Yep. Alright, now the disconnect or out of battery. Okay. Yep. Alright, now let's make sure our magazines are locking the slide back. Empty magazine. Well, I'm going to kick this one out. Oh shit, good hit. My best shot yet. Yep, that's doing that. Okay. Still locking the magazines in good. Yep. Still dropping them free. All right. All right. What I've just shown you is practically all you really need to do when cleaning or maintaining your 1911, or really any other handgun for that matter. All right, it's not, it's not a complicated process. You certainly don't need any expensive gun oils or overpriced 3-in-1 aerosol spray cleaners or frog lube or any of that crap. Simply clean the parts with a cheap gun bore solvent and patches. All right, and then just dry them off. And if you want to lubricate, which I don't lubricate, but there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with lubricating your gun as long as you do it the correct way. A simple $4 bottle of standard cheap gun oil will work just as good as any other high dollar gun oil on the market today. Okay. All right, I hope this video helped you at least in some small way. Remember, I'm only offering options and suggestions. So thanks for watching. I'm Antonius, and I look forward to shooting it straight with you again real soon. Ciao.